We're looking at Nigeria's Naira that has emerged as the best performing currency in April. And also the other part of it is the Nigerian Breweries that has shut about 2 factories, lamenting economic downturn. To help us understand this better, I'm being joined by Gospel Obele, Chief Economist at Streetnomics. Gospel Obele, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Having me, Lekan. Really nice to speak with you again.
Of course, it's always nice to know that you're there to answer our call. We'll start with the Naira Gospel. Now, the Naira emerged as the top performing currency in April and has been projected to appreciate below 1,000 Naira to the US dollar. Is that good news for you after weeks of continuous decline?
Well, in context to best appreciating, we've seen that the exchange rate has really improved in the previous weeks owing to the series of actions that the central bank has taken, and that's really has been impressive. As and when Yemi Cardoso came into the space as central bank governor, we knew that his prospects and his profile and the work he's done will speak for him. Also, being the fact that he's got very good relationship with the current president Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we see it happening. Although it's been a roller coaster ride. In my own sense, what I would think is that what has happened here is that the Naira has the exchange rate has sort of moderated, being that interference by the apex body. I wouldn't necessarily say that it has appreciated. I would say it has moderated because the concept of appreciation is still a function of production and value processing and value add, as the case may be. We've always known that the value of Naira was way over bloated by virtue of speculative and leakage activities, some of which I've shared severally in our previous conversation. So the extent to which round tripping, speculations, leakages within the monetary or within the fiscal and general workings of the Nigerian economy, all right, all of that has led to where we were a couple of weeks ago. So what the central bank has done was just to interfere in that strategic cleanup of the market, to sort of moderate the market, to find this reasonable balance as to when to take off currency or monetary reforms as we go into the future. So for me, it's more of moderating than the appreciative stance of the currency at the moment.
Okay, so you're speaking more about the moderation of the Nigerian legal tender, but then we see that the CBN deployed a raft of policies to achieve this current success. Well, which of the policies do you think had the most impact on the moderation of the Naira?
For an economy like Nigeria, you can't really say one particular policy stands out because the complex nature of the Nigerian economy requires very interlinked, multifaceted rollouts of policy over a period of time to reach a particular objective. And that's what the central bank has done successfully well. Driven circulars, worked with customs, worked with bureau exchange operators, cleaned up in-house, introduced discounted rates, trying to sell below market price and all of those things. So it's been a combination of these different policies that are sort of interlinked that has brought down, the exchange, as the case may be. So going forward to the future, it's to take a cue to realize that we need more policies that are very coherent and very interlinked in its nature to do better for the monetary system as well as the Nigerian economy. So I would say it's more or less a coordinative or coherent move of the central bank, vis-a-vis all of the circulars and policies that are introduced that led to the reduction.
Well, Gospel, there are still concerns about liquidity in some quarters, with some saying that foreign portfolio investors can decide to take out their money at will. For them, beyond CBN's interventions in the market, Nigeria needs to earn more foreign currencies and shore up its reserve. So do you share the same thoughts on this?
Yes, I do share the same thought because many of the policies that the central bank introduced at the time was also such that, was at the expense of something. Like I mentioned, trade-offs had to happen. In as much as the cluster of policies were coherent, we also saw a level of trade-off. The external reserves and all that was slightly being depleted. So the big ticket question will now be, how do you achieve sustainability of these reforms and also secure, a good stance when it comes to external reserves? And again, that's what takes me back again to the question of production and value add. All right. So in essence, we've successfully moderated. now to ensure that the currency scales in value, which is sustainability in this context, then we have to do the core thing that must be done. Now, when that core thing that must be done is being done, we realize that the currency would naturally rise in value and we'll be able to secure foreign exchange. So take, for instance, if we've been able to add value to goods and services, we have been able to promote the services sector, been able to promote access to market solution for SMEs who are willing and ready to export, realize that the currency would take off in value, and that would also fetch us FX receipts on the non-oil block that we're currently experiencing. All right, so it's a balancing out initiative if we choose to go on that sustainable route, as the case may be. The challenge or the fear I have for the central bank is that many of its policies, in as much as they've been very short-termist and quick fixes, all right, to moderate the market, they've also been at the trade-off of something. And I don't think that enough reasoning was put in place to ask ourselves, how do we really balance out on these trade-offs? And is what we're doing really sustainable towards, the value of the currency? So, but we're going to see how, initiatives will be played out as we go on in the coming weeks, and how the market, would find its balance as we go on.
Yeah, so I'm talking about sustainability and quick fixes. On X handle, that was, I think, yesterday or day before yesterday, a couple of people started speculating that probably the CBN actually took money out of the reserve to boost liquidity and to shore up the Naira. Do you think that speculation is rife?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, like I mentioned, a lot of short-termist policies were being driven. Interlinked short-termist policies were being driven. I've also seen the recent fear or rising concern for the FX, for the external reserves. All right, and if you think about it very well, where else would the central bank, be able to, pull off, a whooping sum of dollars like that, to support the balancing out of the market and all that. So there's a sum of sense in that argument. All right. But then you've also seen cases where central bank has to loan some monies, in and out of coffers to just clean up and balance out on some obligations. However, it has not been sustainable, which is why I said that the argument in this case, in my own humble opinion, has been moderating of the market, not creating of the value of the currency. All right, which are two different things. Right, you can do anything to moderate a market. You can interfere in the demand and supply forces, firmly interfere in that floating mechanism, but we've not seen anything in view of sustainability.
Okay, let's now look at the other part of the discussion, the Nigerian breweries. Now, this company intends to shut down 2 of its 9 breweries as a recovery plan. That does not sound good, considering the trend of top business brands that have exited the Nigerian market. How do you see it?
Yeah, it doesn't sound good. And we've seen that this has constantly played out in the last 2 weeks. Lots of companies, MZO, and folks like that have raised concerns. GSK and co, they've raised concerns about the sustainability of the manufacturing sector in Nigerian context, which again speaks to the quote unquote sustainability of this Naira exchange thing that we just talked about now. Right. So in my own opinion, it's a sign. It's an early sign that something is really going down within Nigerian breweries, and we need to pay very close attention. We've seen some big organizations, declare losses as well this year. So it's to constantly show to us that outside all of these dynamics or short-termist approach of trying to manage the currency, there is a worsening real sector. And once your real sector begins to worsen or goes constantly on a decline, then it tells you that the nation is consistently on a decline. All right, and nothing can change that. So that calls for us to begin to, look at the policy issues a bit more holistically in terms of what needs to be done to enable or to support institutions, especially institutions who have been around for a long time, to continue production and to do more for the real sector, as the case may be. That in itself is a burning issue that I think the FEC needs to address in its next meeting, as a priority conversation.
Okay, so talking about what needs to be done, let's just keep up with that particular slide that looked at the different areas or the key factors that's affecting the Nigerian economy that we saw a while ago. We're looking at inflation, foreign exchange shortages, high interest rates, global economic slowdown, supply chain disruptions, energy sector challenges, security concerns. These are big issues for an economy to deal with. So if you're going to be critical, looking at all these items, what are the steps you think can be taken, probably 1 or 2, that can help deal with these issues?
Well, to be honest, the world is like how one global economist put it. We're trying to deglobalize in the face of globalization, and the World Trade Organization put the term as deglobalization as the frontier, meaning how do you try to make sense of economic progress in the growing world or market of fragments, all right, interest rate, inflation, and all that of that. What I would think as an economist, thinking about it from Nigerian and like the African context as well, is to look for low-hanging fruits because many of the challenges that are faced right now are also because we are not so much of a productive economy. So take for instance now, look at the services sector. Or you don't necessarily need to move product from one place to point A to point B. You have a teeming army of young people who are constantly churning out ideas, products, and services on their laptops every day legally and working with organizations, within and across the borders. Sorry, yeah, across and within borders. All right. So how do we take advantage of the services sectors first of all? And so to say that we don't even have a national services policy to start with. Now, how do you empower SMEs who are ready and willing to export? How do you create a one-stop shop where they can access finance and where they can access market? Two critical things. Now, once we're being able to juggle that point, realize that it becomes a lot easier for us to be able to finance our local challenges, our infrastructure deficits and all that, and we're also able to secure foreign exchange as the case may be. Do not forget also that the narrative of interest rates strongly benefits the financial sector as against the real sector. So more reform efforts have to benefit the real sector to be able to create that balancing out as we go into the future. And the inflation dynamics we also deal with to a large extent is hinged heavily on food inflation and imported inflation. All right. So again, the cultural change has to also be introduced to encourage more Nigerians to buy Nigeria to grow the Naira. All right. Not just as a theme or as a song or as a campaign, but as an actual investment into the services and the real sector to enable all of these dynamics happen. Right. So once we can begin to touch on, I'm really convinced that we won't be able to deal with all of the challenges you just listed on the screen within the next 4 to 5, even 8 years of the current presidency. All right. Because many of these challenges are reinforced by global events and have come to stay. So the big ticket issue would be how do you relax the pressure of these different dynamics on the local economy, the local consumer, and the everyday business in Nigeria. All right. The only best way you can do that is to map out what you can control and then maximize the low-hanging fruit and begin to fix the structural issues and all that. And in many cases as well, there is need for Nigeria and many African countries to work better together to be able to hold their position on global issues. Because one of the major reasons why we are receiving those shocks and we're really receiving them badly is we're not being able to hold ourselves firmly. For instance, interest rates. Globally, central banks are increasing interest rates. And the fact that central banks are increasing interest rates doesn't necessarily mean that you interest rates, all right, to beat down inflation. We've seen that whilst that has worked in some economies, inflation has worse off in many economies. And the central bank, for instance, in Nigeria, has been on that wild goose chase, firefighting, vicious cycle of increasing interest rates to tame that inflation. And that has not happened. All right, it has not happened because our own inflationary dynamics, and to a very large extent, for many of that developing and emerging market, are very hinged on more structural and monetary issues. On more structural than monetary issues. So until you begin to look at these things from a different lens and look for more creative ways to, tap into our low-hanging fruit, I don't think we'll have any form of significant leap over the challenges. And we may keep getting worse off whilst the global market is trying to look for, very compromisable ways of dealing with the problems that we are faced with today.
And that would mean that what is happening on the global stage will not end soon, even if the government comes up with policies. Implementation is key. And also how we begin to see the results trickle in is something that we also may need to consider, because we don't even know how soon we begin to see the effects of these changes, hinged on the fact that if the government can key into these different policies that you've actually outlined, we'll be able to see the needed change in terms of economic growth for Nigeria. That's going to be one big hurdle for the Nigerian government to cross if they're able to take that initiative. Gospel Obele, Chief Economist at Streetnomics, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Have a lovely day. Bye.